Hello, everybody. This is the February The Montessori Show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am going to do this solo this month. My co-host Simone Davies in Amsterdam is taking a much-needed little spring break with her two children and enjoying some quiet time. So I am here for you to answer all of your questions this month. And please join me. Post your questions in the chat box. If you are on a desktop, you can do that. Otherwise, I know I have received some questions that I am going to put up right now. So welcome again, everybody. This is the February The Montessori Show, answering all of your questions concerning Montessori and positive discipline and any other kind of parenting questions that you might have. So my name is Jeanne-Marie Paynel, and I am the owner and founder of Voilà Montessori. And Voilà Montessori is for parents, caregivers, grandparents, wanting to know more about Montessori and really know how to apply it in their daily life. I'm a true believer that Montessori is really a beautiful, educational philosophy and method, but it is also really a beautiful way to understand human development and to understand what our children need at different times in their lives. And if we have that knowledge, we can really provide for them a, environment that will help them flourish and really be those thriving, independent children that we desire, but more importantly than we desire, that they, that is their potential. And if we set up an environment for them that is going to, give them the opportunity to blossom that way, then, how wonderful is that, right? So again, I'm here to answer all of your questions, and welcome. I have a few people. Please let me know where you calling in from. I love how every month we have such an international crowd, and I apologize. I'm kind of doing both things. Usually Simone and I kind of, take turns doing the chat and everything, and so I am doing this solo this month, so it's a little new for me, so bear with me if I'm a little slow to respond. I was looking for the questions that came in, and I am not seeing it right away, so let me see here if I can find it. Okay, so here is my first question for today. I am a new mom and wondering what Montessori way for introducing solid food to babies. What age of babies should start eating solid purees? What do you think of baby-led weaning? Does baby-led weaning like Montessori weaning? So great question, Minnie from Canada. Thank you for sending that question in. So this is going to be kind of a twofold answer, because it's a personal answer as a parent, and also based on my Montessori training. I did both my 3 to 6 and 0 to 3, so AMI diploma from birth to 6 years. And the way that we approach weaning being not the stopping, breastfeeding, but more the introduction to solid. And so there are, depending on the age of your child, and you say you're a new mom, I don't know the age of your child, but let's say around 4 or 5 months, you will start noticing that children are very intrigued with what we are eating. They kind of, eye our spoons, they salivate and kind of look at us with this, open mouth, drooling at our food. They start wanting to reach. And that is a beautiful sign. And it is the child communicating with you that they are interested in something different. Up until now, they've either been breastfed or bottle fed, and they have had a very kind of intimate relationship to food, mostly, held in our arms, and we're right there. Now we are introducing a new way of a new relationship with food. So like I said, around 5 or so months, and this again is going to depend on the child, but they usually start showing that interest. And also they are creating internally some enzymes that are, making it possible for them to digest other foods. So what we want to look at this point is really to start introducing what I like to say, seasonal, preferably organic, local food. And this is just to, have the best quality for them. And what I recommend to parents is really to introduce one food, so one locally seasonal, preferably organic food, preferably for, maybe 2 or 3 days. And this is really just to help us determine if there's any, allergic reactions and things like that. But so it doesn't always have to be that way, but, and also, especially if it's some of the foods that you've eaten, if you're breastfeeding, if there were allergic reactions, they would have already happened. But really is to just start introducing food really as a sensorial experience, because the child is going to put something new in their mouth, and they're going to have a taste and sometimes make a funny face. And sometimes we might think that that is, they're kind of rejecting the new food, but really they are just reacting to this new sensation. So I just, really start introducing what we are already making for the family, what we are already presenting for the dinner. And just really, introducing bits by bits. I preferably do like the puree at the beginning. I do like the baby-led weaning in the idea that it is baby-led, meaning that we are following their interest for food. I'm not particularly fond of the some of the images that I see around baby-led weaning where there's just food everywhere. There's, and this, might be, this is, like I say, this is very personal. It's my culture of, there's a certain respect around food, and I don't particularly want the child to be throwing it on the ground, putting it in their hair and their ears and so forth. So there's this kind of, like I say, a new relationship with food. I do like to introduce the weaning table, which is a very low table and low chair, so the child's feet are on the ground. You are sitting across from them, and you are, giving them, you're feeding them, and you're also giving them a utensil so that they can try doing it, together with you as a partnership. It does get a little messy, but it's not as, I guess, and this is, this is, like I say, this is very personal, but what I have seen of baby-led weaning sometimes is just like putting food in front of them and they just, play with it, which is important. Like the sensorial aspect of it is very important. I just want it to be beneficial for both. I don't want you to feel that that is the only way, and that when you feel your child, it's going to be 2 hours of cleanup afterwards. I want it to be something that is manageable for everybody. So there is a little sense of giving them the opportunity to feel some of the food, to experiment and all of this. But I like to do a little bit of both, basically, I guess, is my short answer. To puree a little bit, or to steam some things so they're nice and soft, and as the child matures, they're going to be able to have more pieces. I like sometimes to and this is, again, this is from my culture in France, a baguette, like to give the end of the baguette that's maybe a few days old, so it's kind of hard, and the child kind of gnaws on it. So it could be, a piece of bread or a hard cracker. They kind of, gnaw on it and everything for that sensorial experience. But otherwise, I do like to give them more pureed food that is also all of the food that we're eating. What I often recommend is I really like this little I think it's a baby cook, and it's a steamer and mixer. So you are basically able to take whatever you have made for the family meal, for the adult meal. You can take the same ingredients, steam them and puree them, so that the child is really having always the same meals as you. So I hope that makes sense. I know I went a little bit all over the place with that, but and food, is such a cultural thing too. There are some cultures that eat with their hands, their chopsticks or utensils. So it's going to be also, we need to stay culturally sensitive to your time, place, and culture. But I do want to limit the big mess. They will make a mess no matter what, because it's intriguing. So, again, I prefer to limit the amount of food that we put in front of them, so that we're limiting the space, the mess. And this, again, is, it's very close to when we talk about preparing the environment. When we talk in Montessori terms about preparing the environment, it's really something about how we want to deal with the environment as well. So let me clarify that. Preparing the environment for me is something that we do so that the child can adapt to their time, place, and culture with ease. It is for them to develop naturally. It is also, for me, a way to empower you to have, control over the environment. For example, when I have a family telling me, oh my gosh, I can't stand it anymore. My child keeps on getting in the dog food and they put it everywhere and it just ends up being a mess. I have to ask the question, why are you leaving the dog food out? You are in control of the environment. So it is important that, whatever you do not want the child to get into, well, put it away. That's all it takes, is just modifying the environment so you are not stressed about, being behind the child and having to tell them, no, don't touch that, don't do this, oh my gosh, what mess did you make? be aware of what's going to intrigue them. You know, when we prepare the environment, I often tell parents of young children or expecting their parents is to get down on their hands and knees and crawl around the environment. As silly as that might sound, you're going to get the child's point of view. You're going to understand where they're going to go, you know, looking for things and exploring for things. So prepare it and make it so that it is easier for you and that you are not constantly stressing out about something that they might get into. If you know that they might get into it and that is really something you don't want them to get in, get it out of the way. Or be there and let them know, I cannot let you touch that. I remember for my child, when we were living in Paris, we had a kind of in the kitchen, it was this strange cupboard that had no doors. And on the bottom, so on the floor, were all these bottles, were our, you know, olive oil and some of our, you know, the liqueurs or whatever. And that, you know, that was kind of dangerous for a little crawling baby. But from the very beginning, I just let her know, I can't let you touch that. And, you know, and she might go over there, but I would just repeat. And very quickly, she understood that that was just not a place for her and that that was fine. So, you know, it kind of depends on the time and effort you want to put into it. I could have very well just taken all of those bottles off of the ground and put them up higher. I think at the time, you know, I just didn't think of that, and that was my choice at the time. So it's just, you know, making sure that you prepare it. So just, you know, to answer, going back to Minnie's question about food, it's also, what are you willing to, you know, how are you willing to deal with this whole environment as well? Like, I love the idea of baby weaning and letting the child, you know, experience the sensorial, but I just limit it so that it doesn't become overwhelming for the caregiver to just have to clean up. So yeah. Any other question? Let me go check here if I have anything that have come in. Yes. Yes, Brooke has asked, can we ask questions as you go along? Yes, I have figured out how to have both screens on. So please, everybody who is viewing, you know, please go ahead. Let me know also where you are calling in from, because I know that in the past we have had a very international crowd, and that always makes me quite happy. So just as I'm waiting for, okay, great. Brooke has come in with a question. My question is regarding implementing Montessori effectively at 12 months. I did not start my child with Montessori principles from birth. All righty. Well, hello. Thank you from Salt Lake City. It's never too late to implement Montessori. From the, I have a sense that because you are listening to this and you are interested in Montessori, you have probably been doing Montessori unbeknownst to you. Montessori is really, I think, a very instinctual also, and a very respectful way to deal with children. So what I would say, Brooke, is that at 12 months, depending on, you know, if your child is already walking or not, there are just so many very simple activities that we can introduce to our child. And why I say walking or not is because really when they do start walking, suddenly their hands are free to work, to do things. You know, up until then, before then, they needed their hands for locomotion. And now suddenly they're standing upright and they are wanting to really model what they've been seeing, what they've been watching us do. So I really love to, introduce a lot of very simple activities. And if some of you also follow me on my Voilà Montessori YouTube channel, I have many little 2-minute videos of simple activities that you can do with children of all different ages. But the principle of this is, for one, it's really important to simplify some of the activities that we might want them to do or show them to do. So, for example, a 12-month-old, it's going to be, for one, and I'll go back to what I was talking about, preparing the environment. It's about simplifying the environment and really only having activities that are going to be beneficial to our children's development, that what I consider being intelligent, purposeful activities, not necessarily entertaining activities and keeping them busy, but really something that is going to really trigger those those brain connections. As I've said before, children have 100 billion neurons just waiting to make connections at birth. So we want to give them quality material. We want to give them, as much as possible, natural made material, because they are also very much of sensorial learners. So we want to give them activities that are also a little bit open-ended, so that they can really be intrigued and be able to repeat an activity. I tend to stay away from battery-operated, noise-making plastic toys that interrupt their concentration. So those would be some things to think about, to look around to see what are the toys that you have for your child. I tend to really, really simplify and minimize the amount of toys that are out, just because they are so intrigued with so much more, with wanting to be with us in the kitchen, with wanting to do things that they've been watching us do. So I really would encourage you to welcome your child into your daily activities. So if you are, loading the washing machine, or you're taking things out, or you're sorting, or you're, cleaning up, have some child-sized tools. They love, love, love to do what they have been watching us do. So I just, really encourage that. And then, like I said, on the Voilà Montessori YouTube channel, there's also many activities, simple things of, having them participate in the kitchen. I mean, it can be simple things like, peeling a hard-boiled egg, or peeling a clementine, or I just posted one yesterday about peeling garlic. So these are all things that you're going to need. Why not involve your child in helping you, get things done on a daily basis? So, I hope that answers your question, Brooke, about, that first of all, it's never too late to start Montessori. And it's really about preparing the environment for them to feel capable and to be able to do things on their own. So we're really looking at what they're interested in and really setting it up so that they can choose activities for themselves, and they can put things away. They might not always do it, but we model it, and we just, this goes here, and we just, put it back, and with time they will learn to put things back, because they are very sensitive to order. So I hope that's answered your question. that of course, you can definitely do Montessori with a 12-month-old, and what how fortunate your child is that you are interested in doing that, and that you're looking into it, because it's really a gift that we give our children, and that we also give ourselves, because I think it's also, we're able to, when we do set up this environment, we are able to really step away and just enjoy watching them discover so much on their own. So one thing that I would emphasize, there's two things actually that I will kind of emphasize on when we are living with young children. First of all, is this respect of concentration. So when a child is doing an activity at home or at school, but when a child is doing an activity, whether you understand it or not, and this is often something that they've decided to get themselves into, whether you understand it or not, whether you understand what it is they're trying to figure out, it's really, really important not to interrupt them. The only reason why you would interrupt a child is if they're hurting themselves. If it's something dangerous, of course, you're going to interrupt and say, I cannot let you do that. Or if they're, damaging something precious, and you're just, that's something, again, I can't let you play with that or work with that in a very respectful way, because remember, they're just exploring. They've only been on the planet for a few months, a few years, and they're just intrigued and explorers. So why I go back to the importance of really preparing the environment, because they are going to go everywhere. They are intrigued by all of it. So we want to be creating a yes environment, an environment where they are going to be able to explore freely. So what I was saying is about concentration. So if they're getting into something, and sometimes it might even be kind of messy, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, what are they doing? If you're okay with the mess, please just don't interrupt and let them go through their flow. And when they come out of that flow of concentration, and we see it in children when they're really focused on something, at that point you can say, oh, that's what I'm not sure what you were doing, but that looks like quite a little mess here. Let me show you how to clean up. And that's another activity in itself. Cleaning up is an activity. So I hope that makes sense. It's really the respect of concentration. And then the other thing is that when we show children how to do something, or we want to maybe show them a new activity, it is really important to slow down our movements. They are needing to analyze. They are very intrigued, and they're looking at our every move. So for example, here I have I just happen to have a little pouch here with my pencils. So maybe we have a little baskets with a few little pouches we've had around the home that are, maybe a little coin purse with a zipper or a snap or something like that. And if we want to show the child how to, maybe use the zipper, we're going to really slow down our movements. We might want to tell them what we're going to do beforehand. But when we are doing the actual activity, we slow down our movements and we stop talking. And this is really, really important for the young child, because what happens is that the young child is really wanting to watch what we're doing. And oftentimes when we talk, and as adults, and I'm guilty of it, we tend to overtalk. We tend to, want to explain everything. but the child needs to focus on your actual movements. So you want to really slow down your hands and stop talking. And I always use the acronym SHOW, which is slow hands, omit words. So for example, with this little, zipper, I might say, oh, look I have a little pouch with a zipper. I want to show you how to open it. And that's it. I stopped talking while I was doing it so that the child can really focus in on what it is I'm doing. And then you can say, oh, now it's your turn, and let them, let them use it. If I would have talked while I was doing it, most often the child would be looking at my mouth and not at what I was showing them. So something to keep in mind, okay? I hope that was helpful. So again, Brooke asked, what kind of focus and concentration can we expect from a young child of 12 months? He can be busy and a bit distracted. I try to keep things simply, but it seems few things keep his interest. So they are very distracted because there are, a lot of things around. I can't, first say a specific time, but I think the time does get longer and longer as the activity kind of is challenging enough and really gives them that motivation to figure out what the next step. And oftentimes we also might misunderstand concentration when they repeat over and over again the same thing. And repetition is very important for the young child, because this is how they are mastering their skill, how they are able to really hone in on what it is they want to do. Like, for example, a child that would be intrigued with my little zipper thing, they might, do it over, hundreds of times until they have really satisfied the need to master this one activity, and then they'll put it aside and move on to something else. That's all part of concentration, that whole aspect of really focusing and repeating oftentimes. So, I wouldn't be discouraged with a 12-month-old little boy who doesn't seem focused for a very long time. As they mature, they will focus, their window of focus will get, longer and longer. And, I have seen children be so concentrated for, 45 minutes to an hour on one activity. A younger child, it might be, 5 minutes, and then 10 minutes, and then 15 minutes. And again, it's going to depend on if that's of interest to them. So that's why also we often talk about observing our children, to really be as their guides. So when I say guides, I mean, parents and caregivers, to really be what, Montessori talked about, being a scientific observer. So to really be in tune with what it is that interests them, so that you can really give them activities that are going to satisfy that need, that curiosity. And oftentimes, if you are able to, give them what it is they need, they will focus and they will concentrate for quite some time. And again, these are activities that are quite simple. Oftentimes, it's just things that are around the house. It's going to be, like I say, peeling a hard-boiled egg or peeling a clementine. That's a lot of, fine motor skills of concentrating, and they're just so focused. They want to, get to, sometimes they just want to get to the food as well, but they are very focused. Or, I'm sitting by a window and I think of a wonderful activity that I love to watch little children do is clean the windows. And this is just, a little spray bottle and a squeegee. So simple. You don't always get, beautifully cleaned windows, but it is, this process that they're going through, and they're so intrigued with the water and taking the water off, and then they repeat it and they do it over and over again. And they are super focused, in things like that. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. Let me see if any more questions have come in. Oops. Okay, no more questions. So just to recap, I touched a little bit on the idea of this notion of preparing the environment, which is really a very important aspect of Montessori. And there's a quote that I always like to refer to, that is, to assist a child, we must provide him with an environment which will enable him to develop freely. And that's really, to me, the essence of the prepared environment. It's an environment that is really going to permit the child to adapt to their time, place, and culture with ease. So this means, when we talk about, for example, the sleeping area for in a Montessori nursery, in a home, it's going to be a floor bed, because this is very simple. This is the floor bed is, to me, a perfect example of preparing the environment for them to adapt with ease, because you are really giving them an area where we suggest that they sleep. It's comfortable, it's safe, and we are giving them this opportunity to, also make sense of their environment. They're not in a crib that is, most often behind bars. I mean, I know there's some beautiful ones now where, it's like plexiglass and things like that. But it's this idea that, excuse me. It's this idea that the child is going to be able to really learn that this area is where they rest, where they are able to, relax and fall asleep. And when they are awake, they can actually get off their bed and go explore whatever is in their room that has been put there, safely. And then what I love about it is that when the child is tired, they know where to go. They can freely go to their bed. And I've seen this happen. I actually, my second child is still, actually, he's a teenager and a good sleeper, loves to sleep. But little, he would, be done with lunch and he would just get up and go lie down for his nap, because that's what he needed. And the environment permitted that. When we have, a crib, for example, they are dependent on us to read their cues that they are tired, and then, they need to be picked up and be put in bed. When we are, from the beginning, giving them this independence and this freedom, they know where to go lie down if they're tired. I'm not saying that it's, easy with every child, and we have some children that really resist naps. I think I was extremely lucky where I had a child who loved his nap and who actually was very upset when he went to kindergarten where they didn't let him nap. I remember him saying, "Oh, mommy, this school, they won't let me nap." It's just funny. So, different children are going to be different. But, it was just kind of to emphasize the idea of this prepared environment, of how we're really creating an environment out of respect for the little humans' needs. They have different needs than ours, and so we are just making little adaptations in our homes. And I like to emphasize that these are temporary, minor little changes, and that they are temporary. They are not going to be, crawling in our environment for a long time. So it's just about kind of being okay with, this environment that has been very adult-centered, needs to be adapted for our smaller humans' needs, and that as they grow, that environment is going to change. I mean, the home environment of little people changes quite a bit those first 3 years. It seems like almost every month. At the very beginning, it seems like almost every week, because their needs change. So it's just being open to changing the environment. And I like to keep it very simple. I tend to be more of a minimalist, where I do not feel that children need to have so many toys out, so many activities, because it tends to overwhelm them, and it tends to almost stress them where there's just too many choices to be made. So I prefer to really limit the amount of activities we have, but really be aware of their beauty, of their intelligent purpose, of the challenge that it's bringing to the child, the new skill that it's bringing to the child, and just make your life a lot easier too, because I think that there's going to be a lot less overwhelm from the caregivers as well, of the amount of things to clean up. I mean, I have been in many homes when I do my home consultations, whether I go in person in the home or do them, via Skype. There's oftentimes this sense of overwhelm from the parent, but I'm always, I always remind them, like, if you feel overwhelmed by the amount of toys, imagine what the young child feels like. It's just too much for them. So I really encourage you to look at your environment and to minimize it. And it doesn't mean to get rid of everything. It just means you kind of put some things away, out of sight, and have it in an organized fashion where you can rotate things. But honestly, in a home, 5, 6, toys, activities at once is sufficient. So there can be, different places in the home where you can have activities. In smaller apartments, it can just be in on one shelf. But there's homes where there might be different rooms. If there's a family room, you might have 2 toys there, and a few more in a other area where the child might be spending some time as well. So it's just really, I want it to be a prepared environment for the child, but I also want it to be a stress-free environment for you, which is really, for me, there's that balance of living with children, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming and stressful and everything if we prepare ourselves and our environment. So that would be, as you can see, I'm extremely passionate about this one. So yes, and so I touch on the environment. I also touch on the idea of concentration, of how important it is not to interrupt our children when they are doing an activity, whether we understand it or not. And then the other one is this idea of slowing down our movements so that the child can really analyze what we are doing, and when we are slowing down our movements, to stop talking. so that they can really focus on what it is you're doing. And this is going to be hard because I think a lot of us, tend to want to explain what we're doing, but try to hold your tongue, and you will catch yourself. And it's going to be really helpful for the child to be able to really understand what you are doing. Alrighty. So Anka asks, how often do you recommend toy rotation? So this is really going to depend on your child and the interest that they have in the toy. For me, a good sign is if they have not touched a toy for, a couple of days, or if they're misusing a toy. That is oftentimes a sign that the toy is either not maybe challenging enough, or maybe too challenging and they're a little frustrated, or maybe it needs to be shown again. Oftentimes those are the signs for me that it's time to take that particular activity out and just replace it with something else. Knowing that oftentimes a toy that maybe is not being used or being misused, if we put it away and maybe bring it back, 3 weeks later, it's going to be a whole new discovery. And they are going to discover it in a whole new way and find new purpose to it. So it doesn't mean that when we take a toy away, we take it, out forever, because sometimes it might be a toy that they haven't really, mastered whatever skill was needed to accomplish it, or they were frustrated and they were misusing it. The other day I was talking to a family about that, where we were looking at the toys on the shelf and what to rotate. And to me, it's just fascinating how a toy that might be misused or is just frustrating to the child, if you take it out and then you bring it back a few weeks later, it's, like I say, it's a whole new discovery. And there, it's almost like they've had time to percolate, and suddenly they're able to do it, and they're fascinated with it, and they repeat it. So to answer your question, it's really, how often do you rotate? It's really going to be, again, what I was talking about, the scientific observer. It's really being in tune and observing what are the activities that your child seems to be drawn to, seems to be repeating more. And those I definitely do not rotate, as long as they're being used and enjoyed, and that they're mastering a skill. I would leave it. It's those other ones that are being ignored or being misused, then I rotate. So it's not this notion of you have to take everything off the shelf and put new toys, every 5 days. There's no precise time frame. It's really about what you are observing your child's interest, and then creating an activity or bringing out a new activity depending on those interests. So Anka, I hope that was helpful and that answered your question about the rotation. It's really going to be, about who your child is and what they're interested in, and the toys that you already have out there, and what they're using mostly. And oftentimes if you do keep only 5 or 6 toys, you might be rotating 2 of them, and it might be every week, and I would definitely not do it more often than every week, for sure. And sometimes it might be even longer. It might be 3 weeks, a month. It really depends on what your child is interested in. Okay. So good. And so I'm not seeing any other question. Let me just check on another document if there is anything I can answer here. I know that there were some, I've had people ask me about how to know whether a school, whether, how to choose a Montessori school. So that would be, also it's just, as I've, as a lot of people know, and maybe you don't, but Montessori itself, the actual educational method was never copyrighted. So it's true that there are, very lovely Montessori schools. And then there are some Montessori schools that call themselves Montessori, but might not be as authentic as we would want them to be, or, maybe have a misconception of one of the aspects of Montessori and such. So for me, it's just really important, if you are looking for, to put your child in a Montessori school, is to really be aware of some of the, some of the elements being, is it really child driven? Is it really an environment that is, respectful of my child's needs? And one of the ways to find that out is really spending some time observing. Just like I, encourage everyone to observe their children, I really, really encourage families to go in the environments and to observe, and this is true whether you're choosing a Montessori school or not. I mean, this is true of any environment that you are going to choose to put your child in. For me, it's really important to take 20 to 30 minutes and really take time to observe what this environment is about. How are the adults treating these little people? How are they being talked to? Are they being respected? Are they coming down to their level and showing respect and talking to them in their eyes? Or are they just, taking them by the hand and bringing them to some place and things like that? So for me, I just really encourage the observation, because you know your child better than anybody else, and you will know whether your child is going to thrive and flourish in that environment. If you are looking for Montessori environments, then I would really recommend to look at some aspects of it. So first of all, is it really child driven, or is the adult directing traffic and telling the children what to do all the time? That would be, for me, a red flag. The other thing is the environment really prepared for the young child? Again, I like it to be simple. I like it to be beautiful, not too much clutter on the walls of letters and numbers and all of this. It should be really serene and kind of invite concentration. And then, is there really a freedom of choice? Are children really allowed to choose the activities that they're interested in? And this has a twofold, because it's also freedom, what we say, freedom within limits. So yes, the child can choose, their own activities, but most often the rule is that they need to have been shown the activity to be allowed to take it off the shelf and work with it. So that is the limit of the environment, is you need to have had an introduction, a lesson on the certain material or activity. And but that's again, if they have been shown a number of activities, then it is their choice to choose what they want to work on. And then the other thing is, for me, very, very important, is the notion of mixed ages. When Dr. Montessori created the schools and the children's houses, she really talked about the notion of being together when they are in these same developmental windows, meaning that there is what we call the four planes of development. And these four planes are usually are 3 years of kind of where they're really a special kind of learner. So the environments, the Montessori environments, are really created to satisfy those different ways of learning. For example, the child between 3 and 6, or 5.5 or so, is a very independent, very individual little learner. They want to figure things out on their own. They want to do things alone. And so that's why a lot of the Montessori environments you will see all of these little children just doing their own thing. But then when you move into what we call the lower elementary, which is the 6 to 9-year-olds, they tend to want to congregate and want to do things together. They have this sense of community. They want to do projects together. They say, oh, come over and help me do this. So there, the environment is set up a little bit differently, where they can sit together and work on projects. So for me, what is really important is that there are mixed ages. So meaning, if you go visit a Montessori school where you're being shown, the classroom for the 2-year-olds and the classroom for the 3-year-olds and the classroom for the 4-year-old, that is a big red flag, because it's really important that the ages be mixed, so that there is this real sense of socialization, which is very similar to the home environment, where we have younger and older siblings. And the beauty of it, to me, is that the young child is fascinated by what the older child is doing. So it kind of encourages them, and it kind of gives them the perspective of what they will be able to do, and what activity they're going to be allowed to do, down the road. And the beauty of it for the older child is really giving them the opportunity to have that compassion for the younger child, and really be able to master some of the activities, because they get to teach the younger child. And and I've seen it in the classroom, and it is just gorgeous to see the older children really taking such good care with never being asked to do so, but just naturally, because they see a little one having a hard time maybe tying their shoelace, and they will come over and say, oh, would you like me to show you? And they help them. So mixed ages, to me, is really a big an important aspect of the Montessori education, if you are looking into schools. And then the other one is this idea of freedom of movement, meaning that in Montessori environments, we really respect the fact that that movement is a basic human need, that they need to move. Asking a young child to sit still is pure torture, and we don't want to do that. So we really actually encourage movement. We actually use movement when we give lessons. I remember when I was in the classroom, I would actually sit as far away from, let's say the math shelf, so that there was even movement in the actual lesson, where, oh, could you go get me the number 2? They would have to walk across the room. And, movement gives energy to the brain. It's important. It's life. So, that's another very important aspect, is this freedom of movement. And you will see it if you observe, in Montessori classroom. Some children are, working at a desk. Some children are working on a mat. Some, it's just really, they have that freedom to move about. So very important. And then the other extremely important, there's just 2 more. One of them being this notion of uninterrupted work cycles. And this brings back to this idea of concentration, what I was talking about earlier in the home is really letting the child be in their flow, really giving them the opportunity to choose an activity, to be able to repeat it as many times as they need to, so that they can really master that skill. So uninterrupted work cycles, meaning, if you visit a school that is, happy to tell you that, every 30 minutes they have a new activity, that's a big red flag, because that is not respecting the child's need to concentrate. And then lastly is just being attentive to who are the trained adults in the environment. Do they really, understand the Montessori philosophy? Are they trained in using all of the material, and so forth? So wonderful. Fernanda from Germany, welcome. So today we had Germany, Romania, Utah, USA. So thank you everybody for being here today. I hope that this was helpful. Next month in March, Simone and I will be back. Simone will be back. I'll be here. She will be back, and we will let you know what our topic will be. And please, send in your questions ahead of time, or you can do it live during the show. Again, this was Jeanne-Marie Paynel from Voilà Montessori, and this is the Montessori Show to answer all your questions around Montessori in the home, parenting, and positive discipline. Goodbye for now, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.